The Supreme Court just handed down a unanimous 9-0 decision. Every single justice agreed. And this ruling affects every gun owner in every single state in America. If you own a firearm, buy ammo, or walk into a gun store, this decision touches your life directly. And most gun owners have no idea it even happened. Quick question before we continue. Are you subscribed? Because what I'm about to break down could help you understand exactly why your Second Amendment rights just got stronger overnight. Hit that subscribe button right now. 90% of gun owners miss updates like this. I don't want you to be one of them. So let's get into it. What exactly happened? On June 5th, 2285, the United States Supreme Court issued its ruling in Smith Wesson Brands versus Estados Unidos Mexicanos. That's a fancy Latin title that just means the United States of Mexico. In plain English, the country of Mexico sued American gun companies. And I mean, they went all out. They sued Smith & Wesson, they sued a major gun distributor called Interstate Arms, and they asked for $10 billion in damages. $10 billion with a B. Here's what just happened. Mexico filed this lawsuit back in 2021. Their argument was this: American gun manufacturers knowingly allowed their guns to flow across the border to Mexican drug cartels. They said companies like Smith & Wesson designed and marketed their guns specifically to appeal to cartels. They pointed to AR-15s, AK-47 style rifles, and .50 caliber rifles as examples. Mexico's lawyers argued these companies were basically helping drug lords get armed up, even if they weren't handing guns over themselves. And here's where it gets wild. A lower federal court actually agreed with Mexico and said the lawsuit could move forward. That shocked the entire gun industry, because that decision, if it stood, would have opened the door to something that could have changed gun ownership in America forever. Let me explain why this matters to you directly. If Mexico had won this case, gun manufacturers could have been sued into bankruptcy. Think about what that means. No Smith & Wesson, no Glock, no Ruger. No manufacturers means no new guns getting made. No guns means your Second Amendment right exists on paper, but has nothing to back it up. That was the real game being played here. Now this is where it gets interesting. The Supreme Court stepped in, and not just with a narrow 5-4 decision, not a 6-3 split along political lines. Every single one of the 9 justices said, no, Mexico loses. This was 9-0. And here's what makes it even more remarkable. The opinion, meaning the written explanation of the ruling, was authored by Justice Elena Kagan. She was appointed by President Barack Obama. She is one of the most liberal justices on the court, and she wrote the opinion completely rejecting Mexico's case. That tells you everything. This was not a partisan ruling. This was not a red versus blue situation. This was the entire Supreme Court, conservatives and liberals alike, standing up and saying this lawsuit does not hold up under the law. Now, quick legal note, this is educational information, not legal advice. Always consult an attorney for your specific situation. But what I'm explaining here is the actual law as the Supreme Court described it. So why did Mexico lose? It all comes down to a law called the PLCAA. That stands for the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act. I know that's a mouthful. Here's all you need to know. Congress passed this law in 2005. The whole point of the PLCAA is to stop people from suing gun companies for crimes that other people commit with guns. Think about it like this. If someone uses a Ford truck to run a red light and hurt somebody, you don't sue Ford Motor Company. Ford made a legal product. The driver made a bad choice. Same principle applies to guns. The PLCAA basically says if someone commits a crime with a legally made firearm, you can't hold the manufacturer responsible just for making the gun. Mexico tried to get around this protection by using what lawyers call the predicate exception. Here's a hypothetical example to explain this. And let's say a restaurant owner knows one of his waiters is stealing from the cash register and does nothing to stop it. That owner could arguably be held responsible for knowingly allowing the theft to continue. Mexico tried to argue that gun manufacturers knew their guns were being trafficked to cartels and knowingly did nothing to stop it, which would make them responsible as helpers in the crime. That's called aiding and abetting, which just means helping someone do something illegal. But here's the part nobody's talking about. The Supreme Court completely dissected Mexico's argument and found that it just didn't hold up. Justice Kagan wrote that Mexico's allegations were of indifference, not assistance. In other words, the court said, even if gun companies knew that somewhere down a long chain of distributors and dealers, some guns ended up in the wrong hands, that's not the same as deliberately helping criminals get those guns. There's a huge legal difference between knowing something bad might happen and actively helping it happen. If you're finding this helpful, imagine what you'll learn in my next video about the 5 words that protect you when police ask about your firearm. Subscribe right now so you don't miss it. These are the exact things every gun owner needs to know. Let's break down the 3 main arguments Mexico made and exactly why the court rejected each one. First thing, Mexico claimed that gun manufacturers sell guns to dealers they know are rogue or dishonest. The court said Mexico didn't name a single specific bad dealer. They didn't point to a single specific transaction. You can't file a billion-dollar lawsuit with vague accusations and no real evidence. Strike one for Mexico. Second, Mexico argued that gun makers should have put stricter rules on their distributors, like banning bulk sales or home-based sales. The court said, not taking extra voluntary steps is not the same as helping commit a crime. The manufacturers were already following federal law. Not going above and beyond, federal law doesn't make you criminally responsible for what someone else does later. Strike two. Third, Mexico pointed to the marketing of guns. They argued that selling AR-15 style rifles, calling them military grade, and making them look like military weapons was deliberately targeting drug cartels. And here is the part that shocked me when I read this ruling. The Supreme Court pushed back hard on that argument. All 9 justices essentially agreed that AR-15s are widely legal, bought by millions of ordinary citizens, and are the most popular rifle in this country. Let that sink in. The entire Supreme Court, 9 justices, all agreed that the AR-15 is a legal, popular, commonly owned firearm. That matters a lot for future legal battles. Strike 3 for Mexico. Case dismissed. But wait, there's something even more important hiding inside this ruling. Most people are covering the Mexico angle of this story, but gun rights lawyers are pointing to something else in the opinion that could matter even more down the road. When all 9 justices confirmed that AR-15 style rifles are widely legal and commonly owned by ordinary citizens, they were dropping a very important legal marker. Future cases that try to ban these rifles have now got a much harder road to walk, because when judges look at future lawsuits challenging AR-15 bans, they will see that the entire Supreme Court used language that confirms these rifles are commonly used by law-abiding Americans. Under existing Second Amendment law, weapons in common use for lawful purposes are protected. The court basically handed gun rights attorneys a loaded legal weapon for future fights, and they did it in a case that had nothing to do with banning guns at all. Here's what most people get wrong about this ruling. Some folks are saying this only affects gun manufacturers. It doesn't affect regular gun owners. That thinking is completely backwards. Here's the reality. If Mexico had won, the $10 billion judgment alone could have pushed major gun companies toward bankruptcy or settlement. Companies facing that kind of financial pressure would have had to agree to self-impose the kinds of restrictions Mexico was demanding. Things like banning modern sporting rifles from their lineup, cutting magazine capacity, and changing how guns are sold. Even without a law being passed, Mexico was trying to use a lawsuit to force the gun industry to do what anti-gun groups couldn't get Congress to do. The Supreme Court saw exactly what was happening. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, one of the most recently appointed liberal justices, wrote a separate concurrence, calling out what she described as Mexico trying to turn the courts into common law regulators. She said the lawsuit was exactly the kind of thing Congress passed the PLCAA to prevent. Don't make this mistake, thinking that Supreme Court rulings that don't directly mention you don't affect you. Every single time the court strengthens the legal shield around the gun industry, it protects your ability to buy, own, and use firearms. And every time that shield gets weakened, your rights get chipped away, one lawsuit at a time. Hey, 73% of people watching right now aren't subscribed. Don't be part of that group. Join the 50,000 gun owners who get these legal updates first. Click subscribe right now and stay ahead of every ruling that matters. Here's the bottom line on what this ruling means in the real world. Number 1. Gun manufacturers in all 50 states are now operating with a Supreme Court-endorsed legal shield. No foreign government and no domestic group can file the same type of lawsuit again and expect it to go anywhere. The court has spoken unanimously. Number 2, the PLCAA, which has been under attack for years, is now stronger than ever. Future challenges to the law have to climb an even higher mountain. Number 3, the language confirming AR-15s as commonly owned and widely used is now part of the official Supreme Court record. That matters in courtrooms across the country. And number 4, this sets a clear precedent that activist strategies to bankrupt the gun industry through creative lawsuits are going to run into a very tough wall. Here's what just happened in plain terms. The country of Mexico tried to use American courts to reshape American gun laws. They failed completely. Every liberal and every conservative justice said no. The law that Congress passed to protect the gun industry did exactly what it was designed to do. And as a gun owner, you should know this ruling happened, know why it happened, and know exactly why it helps you. This information could literally be critical before the next wave of lawsuits hits in 2026 and beyond. Subscribe now because my next video breaks down exactly what legal battles are still coming for gun owners in every state and what you can do to be ready. Let me wrap this up for you. The Supreme Court ruled 9-0, throwing out Mexico's $10 billion lawsuit against American gun manufacturers. The ruling strengthens the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act. It confirms AR-15s are legal and commonly owned. And it slams the door on foreign governments and activist groups trying to bankrupt the gun industry through the court system. This ruling applies in all 50 states right now, today. If this video helped you understand something important, do me one favor. Subscribe to this channel. I put real hours into researching these rulings so you don't have to dig through 100-page legal documents. The gun law landscape is changing fast, and you deserve to stay informed. Hit subscribe, ring that notification bell, and share this video with every gun owner you know. Because the more people who understand their rights, the harder it is for anyone to take those rights away. Legal disclaimer, everything in this video is educational content only. It is not legal advice. Laws and rulings can have different effects depending on your specific state and situation. If you have a legal question related to your firearms rights, always speak with a licensed attorney in your state.